Hey gamers, today we're looking at Florence. Let's check it out. Setup for the game is very simple. What you're going to do is each player is going to take a player board, a ring of their color. They're going to put all their debutantes, mademoiselles, and maestro on the board here. They're going to start with 3 gifts. 3 gifts will also be on the dial. They'll start with 12 time. You're going to shuffle all these little brag tokens and put them in their little areas around the board. Shuffle each one of the little scandal decks and put them up at the top. Your score tracker will start up here. Everyone has a 1 and even 200 round tracker here because you will get massive points here. For people who are too dumb to play on areas marked for 3 to 4 players, you can place one of these over it to block those areas if you wanted to. Game also has a first player token. You're going to shuffle these and give one of these out to each player. This will count for in-game points, which I'll talk about later in the game. You're also going to have these 3 little tokens, which is where your starting carriages will be. What you're going to do is you're going to just randomly select from these 3 tokens. I have a 6, 8, and 5, so I'll just put them right there, and right there. These I will hold off for later, because then what you're going to do is you're going to shuffle all these rest of the tokens and then put one out on each of the wheels, and then wherever they're at, for instance, red is at the 1, so I'd put the 1 there, and do the same thing for pink and blue. Now how you're going to start is starting with the first player, or last player I should say. Everyone's going to be able to take one of these debutantes and put them anywhere they want to at the start of the game, starting with the last player and going to first. After that, you're ready to play, starting with the first player. The board tells you what all things cost, what time costs here, and you can't use more time than what you have in your clock tower here. And every time you take a time in action, you'll just move down in the clock timer there. So, what are your actions? Well, 1, you can place a debutante anywhere on the board for 4 times. So, getting rid of 4 time there, so going from 8 to 12. I could place, let's say I already had a debutante right there. I could place another there, or 1 in any other angle on the board. Maybe I place him right there. Now, another turn I can take is for 5 time, I can upgrade that debutante to a mademoiselle, or a mademoiselle to a maestro, like it says here. And all I would have to do is pay the 5 time and then switch out either one of these for a mademoiselle, and then he would go back into my player board. Same thing if I was upgrading a mademoiselle to a maestro. Now in placing people, let me give you a little example here. On number 4, as you see, green players already had 2 players here, and I put one of my debutantes behind him. Well, later on, if I upgraded that debutante to a mademoiselle, she would move to the top of the line because she is more important than these guys. And if green later on updated theirs to a mademoiselle, maybe this one or that one, doesn't matter, they'd fall in behind me. They wouldn't pass me up unless green player upgraded his mademoiselle to a maestro, and then a maestro would take the lead. So you're kind of always jockeying for position, sometimes prime position, or trying to get all the positions in a certain area. Now on top of that, other actions you can do is move some of your men. Here it says, hey, for 1 time you can move 1 person anywhere over the board. And for 3 time you can move that person twice. Or for 3 time you can move 2 people once each. So what's that mean? Well, maybe I'm done with this area for right now, and maybe I want to go to one of the other areas. So as the purple player, I can play 1 time for my mademoiselle to move up the street and go here. Or if I wanted her to move 2 spaces, I could go 1, 2, and follow up here, which of course she would take the prime position there. After that, or maybe I want to move 2 people 1 space. Maybe I want to move him over here and her over here. That would cost me 3 time. But that's how you're moving people. Of course, adjusting your spot in line based on the seniority of your meeples out there. Another thing you do in the game is brag. Bragging costs 1 time, and you'll take one of your little chalices and put it on the little brag station where one of your people must be. Like if I'm purple, I can't play here because I don't have no purple people here. But since I have purple, I can play here. Now each of these do different things in the game, and it's self-explanatory. However, you can look at the rule book and it'll tell you what each one does. And depending on the amount of points you score, that's where you put your chalice. So if I was to score 0 to 6 points, I'd put it here. Or maybe if I scored 7 to 12, I put it here, and so on and so forth. What this does is it blocks out other players. Let's say later on, green player wants to come, but they can only score 6 points maximum on this. Well, they could only place their chalice here, which you've already taken, so that way green player cannot make a brag on this tile until they can score higher than the chalice already given. So if I, and of course you can't score the same chalice twice, So if another player came in there and moved up, if green, let me say orange would want to go in here, but they couldn't score 13, then they could not play on that unless they could score that many victory points. Another action you can do in the game is pass. First player to pass gets 2 time added to their clock here. Any other players who pass will get no time, but once you pass, you get to place your colored ring on any of these buildings. So for example, let's say purple player passed first. He would gather 2 time back on his little watchtower there, and he placed his ring here. Now, every time play goes back to the purple player, even though they've passed, they can do one of 3 things. They can gain additional time, gain 1 victory point, or move their debutante 1 up the line. Now, they can keep doing that until they get to someone higher than them, like a mademoiselle or a maestro. After that, they only have the choice of gaining 1 time or gaining a victory point. And you keep doing that until all players have passed. When all players pass, everyone takes back up their pass ring and you start a new round. But before you start a new round, you now must travel each one of these little carriages to their destination. So for example, pink would go over here now, red would go here, blue would go over there. Now, there's a few other things you're going to be doing here, but if you, let's say red was supposed to stop here, if red stops here, then you have an option, and this is on your player board. If you have any time left over, at least 2 time left over, you may give a gift to whatever noble is visiting you. And how you give a gift, you pay your 2 time and put it on the adjacent color of the carriage that you're paying the gift to. Now, once you pay a gift, that's where all these bodyguards can come in line. Depending on who you gave the gift to will determine where you can place bodyguards. And they're located here on the shields on where you can play them. So for example, if I bribed, I guess, a red carriage, I could put one on any one of these shields in the street. And what that means is, if ever one of my purple guys traveled across that road, I would gain 1 time. So maybe I paid 1 time to move him this way, but basically got the action for free because I gained a time that way. Now, what if another player had to use the road where one of my bodyguards are? Then I would get 2 victory points. Another place on where to place a guard is on one of these brag cards. If you pay the pink player, and the iconography shows each one of these, then you may place one on the little pink player shield. And what that does is, every time a carriage passes by that building, doesn't matter any color, you're going to be able to grab a scandal card of that color. And as you see on this board, there's arrows to where the carriages will always move. So you must move them in that area. So for instance, if red needed to go over to that building, they wouldn't go this way. They'd cut up here, go down here, move up here, move back around here, and move all the way around the board before they could move through there. And again, if they move through bodyguards, you don't get anything. It's just when other players move through your bodyguards. But with that being said, any of those people who they're passing by, let's say all 3 carriages pass by purple, I get 1 of each of these scandal cards. What do these do? Well, they're basically little cheats in the game that for a certain amount of time, you can take that action. So this is, I can move 1 to 2 people, 1 to 3 spaces for only 3 time. And there's a bunch of stuff like that. And so you can play those at any time you want to during the round. The third bodyguard action would be to place on one of these blue shields here. And blue shields are basically putting them in the buildings, and they're like little bouncers. So for example, let's say that green player was already here, but purple decided to place one here. Well, because his bodyguard's here, he's going to move this guy up to the front of the line, as long as there's no one ranked above him. So for example, if that little mademoiselle was there, then he could only move past these 2 debutantes, but he couldn't move past her because she outranks him. But the bodyguard will make sure that your people always get first. So again, if I was to upgrade him to a mademoiselle, instead of just sitting second in line, which is what would normally happen if it didn't have a bodyguard, once I have a bodyguard, then she may move up to the top of the line. So that's what bodyguards do when you're giving gifts. Of course, you have to pay the time and have to be on the same space as that particular carriage in order to provide for them a gift. Now in the game, 3rd round you'll get 2 more gifts from this player dial, and then later on 3 more rounds you'll get your last gift as well, and you'll place them out in different areas, showing where the gifts are and where your bodyguards could go. Now at the end of the round, a few things are going to happen. First off, you're going to score it. And let me just bring this dial up here to kind of show you how a score happens. For red player, what red player has to do is they're going to reward the people who are in the prime position, then everyone behind them. So starting with the first player in that prime position, they get 11 points. If purple's right behind them, they'll get 7. If green is in the next 2 spots, they'll get 6. If orange is there, they'll get 1. That's how red scores. Then you'll shift the tile over here to say, okay, that was red. Next time, pink is going to travel, and then they're going to score. How much time does everyone start with? Well, they add 7 more to their score. So for instance, if a player was at 0, they'd gain 7. For me, I was already at 7. Can I get more than 7? No. 12 is the maximum you can get. You can not get more than 12. So if you gain more than 12, you're just going to lose that time. After that, it reminds everybody, hey, this is where they're going to end their turn at the end of that round. And how does pink player score? Well, pink player scores a little bit differently. Pink player will score in order as well, but only they'll be scoring maestros and mademoiselles. They're not interested in scoring debutantes. So you need to make sure you have your characters upgraded or move these people to that area to greet them because they're a little hoity-toity there. Once that's done, again, you'll shift it over to the next round and see here at the bottom of blue, it says, hey, 2 gifts. So you would take 2 gifts off this dial to play more. But this round would start with 5 time extra. So anyone, let's say I was down to 3 time, I'd gain 5 more and have 8. And this one scores a little bit differently. This is whoever has the most people in an area. So let's say blue was in their turn there, and green was here, but purple was in front of the line, you know, and maybe they had a second person. I can't find a second person. There it is, over here. And then what would green be able to score, even though they're not in the front of the line? Yes, they would, because green has the majority. And if they have the majority, they have the option on paying one of these times. If they pay 4 times, they get 20 points, 2 times 12, 1 time 5. Now, whichever one they pick, no other player may pick that. So if green player doesn't have 4 time, they can only have 2 time, then they'll get 12. If purple player has 4 time, they can grab the 20 points since the green player did not take it. But again, it just depends. So that's how each one of these are scored. And so you just read, and basically it's just the same on each one, how they're scored and everything. So you just keep moving around. Every time you reveal a new area, you'll flip over a time token to see what the time would be, and you flip over this to show, okay, so that's where, well, if I move in here, then that's where blue or pink would be going next, I guess, or red would be going. So I'd move this red marker over to the, well, he's already at the 4, so let's say he was here. I'd move it over to the 4 to show, hey, that's his next destination. So everyone will know. And they're going to visit all of these destinations over time, all the nobles will. So you're constantly moving people, putting people out on the board, and keep going until you get to the end of the last round as indicated on the dial. Once that's done, what you're going to do is you're going to, of course, add up any victory points that you got through scandal cards. You're going to cash these in for 1 time each, then cash in your time for victory points. So essentially they all cost 1 card. And then you're going to look at your little in-game cards that you got at the beginning of the game. In any of these circle spaces, and you see all of them are different. All the circle spaces are different. But any of your people that you have that are in these sections, you're going to get victory points depending on how many debutantes, mademoiselles, and maestros you have. So for instance, if I had 6 in a total of 6 in these areas, I'd get 21 points. After that, you'd add up all your victory points, and whoever has the most points wins. Final thoughts, what do I think about the game? Wow. I am not much for area control. In fact, I don't really like area control games. And I love this game. That you can move around the board once, twice. You're going to get 200 plus points if you play this right. A lot of people will get 100 plus points. And that feels so satisfying. And that each carriage scores differently and has different options. And you need to save your time, but you don't want to save your time because you've got to make this extra move. And even though this other person is getting their guy up, you know, placing your ring down and moving them up the queue or getting a victory point or getting extra time, that's dangerous. And I don't want them to get any more of those free actions. But I've still got a few more turns to go that's going to net me some big points, so I can't help but give them extra stuff. So even when you pass, you get bonuses. Really smart game. Really beautiful looking game. In fact, the website, this is the second game I've got from them, Brain Crack Games. Their other one is called Ragusi or whatever. It's another city game. I've looked at it several times. It does not appeal to me, but maybe I should try it out because these other two are just fantastic. This is a fantastic game. Lots of strategy, lots of hard decisions. The time you get back every round is different each time. Where people are going is different each time, where the characters are going. I thought, well, you should easily paying gifts every round. No, you can't. I'm sure you could, but it's really hard to get all those gifts out, especially to have the time left over to take it. Sometimes people got majority at blue, but didn't have enough time to get any of the big rewards, which was awesome. And then in-game. Those in-game points kill me every time because I totally forget about it. And you can really score some big points by having family members in those sections and then come back and win. We had someone do that, and it blew me away because I scored 0 points at the end game, and I was up by 20-something points, but then he had 8 in the areas he needed it and got 32 whatever points and beat me just barely. It was great. It was a great game though. Wow, so much here, so simple and easy to play and understand, but like a lot of strategy. I mean, this is right up my wheelhouse. I absolutely love this game. Online, this Brain Crack Games has these metal rings you can get to upgrade your thing. I was like, I don't need no metal rings. I want the metal rings. All right, gamers, that's it for now. Until next time, game on!